Okay, I think we're live. All right, I think we're live now. Hey everyone. So what I want to do real quick is go over some of the questions.
Wait, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? What's going on? Okay, I'm gonna just do a quick test and make sure the audio's coming through. Okay, so everyone who is live right now, if you look to the right of the video window, you will see a little chat box. Perfect, thank you. Say hello. Welcome. I'm really glad you could make it live. And so just to start, before we get into the individual critiques, I want to go over some of the questions that everyone had asked and sent in with their homework. And there were some repeat questions, so I'm going to kind of just try to address some of the collective questions that came in. So, hi Kim, hi Megan, hi Johnny. So feel free to chat and ask questions. I have my husband here, Josh.
Hello.
He's going to read off the questions as they kind of come in, but I'm going to start off by answering the ones that you guys sent in through email. And
don't mind the screen right now because I am importing all of your homework.
Yeah, so he's importing your homework into Procreate so that I can... Oh, he doesn't have a mic on, it's just me. Hi Hugh, how you doing? Yeah, well, this is our first live stream, so please bear with us while we figure out some of the tech stuff. So he's importing homework while I'm going to start on some of the questions. So did everyone get to watch the extra little YouTube video on how to sharpen your charcoal? Because that was one of the early questions I got in the week, was how I sharpen my charcoal and how I prepare, my pencils for sketching. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, head over to my YouTube channel and you will see it there under my account. And that will stay there. And I will also include that in a download at the end of the course. I'm going to create a Dropbox folder with all of the course videos so everyone can download and save them and have them forever, including the critique videos so that you can watch them moving forward. So, so one of the questions I got was, how do you keep your hand from smearing the charcoal when you're drawing? And they're having trouble with their paper getting messy, and is it just a normal process, or do you just need to erase it afterwards? This is just part of working with charcoal. It is kind of a messy medium, and it's also one of the reasons I like to work on the gray paper. The gray paper is a little more forgiving and it doesn't show those stains as much that tend to occur when you're starting off with your sketch. That being said, I do try to keep my contour drawing very clean as I'm drawing with the vine. If you find that your vine is putting down too much material and it's going down too dark and creating a big mess, you might try switching to a harder vine. And that will help. That's one of the reasons I prefer the Nitram brand. I think they're based out of Canada now, so but they're carried pretty much worldwide, so you should be able to get it if you order from their website. I'll post that link maybe in the comments below this video just so you guys can go there and order directly from them. They're a great company and I really love their charcoal. And so I'll also use a kneaded eraser to just clean up my lines as I go along, so that way if they do smear, it's not getting kind of burnished or rubbed into the paper Another solution to doing this, and you'll see this in the later videos, is to use something called a Maul Stick. That's spelled M-A-H-L, Maul Stick. And you can order those from the art store. And hi Kayla, hi Jackie, hi Susan, welcome to the live stream. So I'm talking a little bit about how to prevent the charcoal from smearing as you're starting your sketch. So a Maul Stick is basically just like a wooden dowel or a curtain rod. Some people even use an old cane, and you just rest it against the drawing board and hold it with your non-dominant hand, non-drawing hand, and rest it the other end towards your board, and then you take your drawing hand and you can rest it on that stick. And what that does is it helps float your hand above the drawing, and you can get a little bit of a cleaner drawing. Another thing I like to do is to just take a sheet of tracing paper and I'll tape it into place. This is especially true after I've laid down some tone. And so that really helps too to prevent me from smearing like the lower half of my drawing. I'm right-handed, so I tend to work upper left to lower right when I'm toning, also to prevent that. So if you're left-handed, you might want to do the opposite. Start in the upper right corner and move towards the lower left. Hi Jesus, hi Linda, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next question. Should I think about values and shadows yet when doing the initial block-in? Yes and no. So yes, you do want to be thinking about them, but you don't necessarily want to be drawing them early on. So in this first stage where we were just marking the proportions, you don't want to start drawing in the shadow shapes, because if you have to move the height of the eyes or any of the facial features later on, then all of your shadow shapes are also going to change. On occasion, I will indicate just really, really basic where the side plane is, especially if I'm doing a profile. And I noticed some of you in your homework who did the profile had drawn in some of those shadow shapes, and that's okay. It will help you kind of judge your widths on the profile of the head. But as with anything else, try to not get too detailed early on so that you don't have to make major changes later and you've drawn this beautiful shadow shape but it's in the wrong spot. So think about it. You can lightly sketch a very general placement, for example, where the main side plane of the head is, but don't draw it in any level of detail.
Nora Dempsey.
Oh, Nora, you can't hear anything? Is everyone else still able to hear me? I just want to make sure my audio is coming through. Kayla, you can hear? Okay. Can you tell Nora to try playing with her volume?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. All right. Are you typing to Nora?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Nora, we'll get you scored away. My husband's going to try and help you through the chat. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. So the next question was, may I ask what the correct way to measure the angle when drawing a portrait, live or from a photo? So I'm assuming what you mean is the tilt or the angle of the head. And one of the best ways is to take your skewer and to outstretch your arm to where your elbow is locked straight and just tilt. So the reason for locking your elbow is so that your arm doesn't move so much. And then try to align the tilt of your skewer with the center tilt in the face. And while keeping your arm locked, move over to the model or to your photo reference and compare the tilts between your drawing. In the beginning, it's important to just kind of get an estimate down and Sorry, Kim, you asked upper or right browser bar? What do you mean?
No, she's we're trying to help Nora.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was just making sure there wasn't another issue. So yeah, I'll kind of do a little extra video this week and post it to my YouTube channel and show you exactly what I mean, just so it's a little more clear. But yeah, you have to kind of get an estimated tilt in the beginning and then check it using the skewer. And locking your arm into place, your elbow with your arm straight, does help you kind of maintain that tilt. So I'll show you a little video in a couple of days and explain that a little better, because it's easier to show than describe.
All right, Nora can hear now.
Okay, welcome Nora. I'm glad you can hear now. Okay, so the next question, how can I get a similar photo reference with my portrait, and can I use your method for live drawing? Okay, so I did have a couple of you ask for a little guide on how to take photo references similar to the ones I provided, and I'm putting together a little something, and I'll add it into the downloads for one of the future lessons. There are a couple of pointers I have for taking your own photographs. And yes, this method applies to working from life. The way I measure on a photo is the same way I would measure my model from life, using comparative measurement. So the method should translate, and the more you practice, it will become a little more intuitive. You know, drawing from life is always a little more challenging because the model moves a little bit and it's harder to get exact measuring. So one of the tips I have for working from life is to, again, when you take your measurements, extend your arm away from your body fully with your skewer, and then it helps to kind of close one eye, or else you'll get double vision. And then you'll use your skewer to help measure and compare proportions on your model, and then you go into your drawing and compare within your drawing. So I will show you in that video that I'll post later exactly how that's done and explain a little more of how I will work from life. And I'll probably have my husband model so I can show how I would do that.
Did you talk a bit about taking photo reference?
Yeah. Well, I will be.
Okay.
I haven't yet. So I'm going to upload like a little PDF with information on how to take your own photographs for the best quality drawings. And I'll have tips on lighting and recommendations. Do you then make prints on photo paper to draw from? My printout on paper is not great. Yeah, you know, I used to struggle with my printer quite a bit, and I just started to use a monitor. I have a nice large computer monitor that I work from, and it's a good size. It's about the size of an iMac, and I love it because I can adjust my contrast according to, you know, the monitor, and it stays pretty consistent instead of fighting a laser printer. You can work from prints if you don't have a large monitor. I would just recommend using something like a photo printer, so that or if you're going to print on laser, print a color on the color setting, but make sure the photo's black and white, and that will come out a little better quality. You could go down to like a Kinko's or a printing service place and have them print one, and usually theirs are a little higher quality as well. One of the main things you want to make sure is that your print, you don't completely lose detail in your shadows, and that your lights aren't completely blown out. So you want to be able to see that full range. When you extend the arm with the elbow locked, hi Nate, welcome. Do you bring the arm up to the eye level? Yes, yeah, pretty much. I mean, it depends on your perspective and what you're drawing. Like I said, I'll make a little video that explains that a little better, and I'll post it to our Facebook page, and I'll probably send out a little email with a link to the video on my YouTube channel. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. I was wondering if there's a way to download your videos. Okay, I did mention this a little bit earlier. I will be placing all of the instructional videos in probably a Dropbox folder if I can't figure out how to get them as a download to you through the Kajabi platform. So yes, everyone's going to be able to download the videos, and you'll be able to, I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, Hugh, you can't see all the photos because I'm going to be opening each one individually. You can see the screen though, right? I just want to make sure.
It's delayed, like heavily delayed.
Okay, so yes, everyone's going to be able to download the instructional videos and keep them forever, and also the handouts and our critique videos. So I will make all of those available at the end of the class, and I will send out a Dropbox link to everyone. Okay, so another question was, the lower edge of the circle corresponds with the nose and the ear. So this comes down to drawing the head from the basic proportional lecture. And actually I wanted to do an additional little lecture on that, and I'm going to post it later on in the week, because I noticed a lot of you were having trouble in the profile view with making the lower jaw a little long, and the head proportions were getting just a little bit out of whack. So I'm going to do an additional little video and explain a little bit of that. And if you have additional questions about that first video, go ahead and send them to me. And the lower edge of the circle corresponds with the nose and the ear. It sometimes does, and it depends on the perspective of the head. So I know that's a little confusing, but if you're perfectly eye level with the model, then the ball will kind of correspond close to the nose. But that depends again on the proportions of that individual and the angle tilt of the head. So I'll try and explain that a little bit more in another video that I'll post later next week.
Kim has a question. May I ask you how to measure the angle, say when drawing the eyes?
Okay, hi Kim. So the question was, I asked how to measure the angle when drawing the eyes. I believe I might have gone over that already, but I'm going to post a video on how to approximate your angles later in the week and show you how to use the skewer or the straight edge and extending your arm to bring your measurement over and get an approximation of the angle or tilt of the head. So I did answer that early in the live stream. After this video, you might want to scroll back and watch the very beginning because I had answered your question early on. Okay, so another question was about distortion in the photos. So it says in photo number 5, her eyes aren't 50% of the size of the head yet, but in your drawing it was 50%. Is this because of distortion, and how do I compensate for it? So early on in the drawing, now the model had pretty full hair on the very top. So when I draw the initial kind of ball of the head and I'm trying to get an estimation of the skull, it really is that. It is an estimation. And I noticed I did some checking on the photo against my drawing, and I wanted to point out that when we're talking about the very top of the head, from a head-on view, from a straight forward view, it's actually the peak of the crown is towards the middle of the head in terms of width, front to back. So from a front view, yes, it would have been around the 50% mark, but because I was drawing a 3/4 view, her forehead and the frontal part of the top of the skull is actually angling up towards that crown. And so the crown was at the correct height, but it might not have looked that way because of the tilt of the skull rounding up to that point. So I'll try and explain that in my elaboration on the video for drawing the basic proportions of the head. I'll try and address that as well.
Will a lot of these questions be addressed in each demo, or for each critique?
Yeah,
like
yes.
Finding the angle of the eyes and everything?
So in some of your individual critiques, sorry, I don't know if the screen went blank. Here, I need you to do that. Okay, sorry about that. It was idle. So I will be addressing some of that in your individual critiques too. Hugh, you asked, many photos have small hair bigger. Do you mean, do you draw the hair larger? So yeah, the perspective, if you're looking up at the model a little bit, the perspective on the hair is going to get a little bit shorter. It really depends on the angle that you were drawing. And you'll see in some of the individual critiques that I have some people actually shrink the hair. It's easy to over-exaggerate it, so one of the things I recommend is just measuring the distance from the hairline on the forehead to the top of her hair. Usually the hair comes up from the initial skull that we draw, but sometimes if you overestimated the size of the skull, you might not want to bring the hair up too much. So it just kind of depends on how you started your drawing and your perspective on the model. Okay, so
maybe ask if anyone has any more questions before we start diving into critiques.
Yeah, there's one more question. I'd like to know how to get the angle of the face more easily. It's hard to understand the angle what the head is depending on the posture of the model. So the question was about how to see the angle of the face a little bit easier. Sometimes the perspective can be confusing. So one of the best ways is to look at the tilt between the features. So the tilt between the eyebrows and the angle tilt of the mouth, because typically your center line coming down the head is going to be perpendicular, meaning it at a 90-degree angle to those tilts. So I'll kind of explain some of that a little more in the individual critiques. Does anyone else who's live right now, have any questions? Did I get to all of you?
All right, I think we're good.
Okay, so all right, so I'm going to start with some of the critiques, and I'm just going to kind of go in order. All right, and if I mispronounce your name, I'm really sorry. I'm going to do my best to say it right. So this is Trung Lee. Is your last name pronounced the same as mine, Lee? So you did a profile, and I know in my demo I really didn't talk about profile very much because I'm doing more of a 3/4 angle. But one of the things that I noticed across those of you who did do profiles was the tilt and the angle of the head. So a lot of you had the head too straight, and her head is actually tilted upward just a little bit. And so one of the things I like to do when I'm drawing a profile, I'm going to change my color here just so it's a little more obvious.
Someone's wanting to make sure that the white lines are the corrections.
Yes, so thank you, Linda. Yes, the white lines are my corrections over the drawing. And even if I'm not critiquing your drawing, it's really useful to see what other people have done and some of the corrections that I'm suggesting, because if you go on and continue to practice out of the photo references that I provided, you'll be able to keep some of those suggestions in mind. So one of the things I like to do when I'm drawing a profile is I try to look for the relationship between, maybe that color's a,
Well, maybe
I'll do yellow.
Not confusing them with too much. You could show them the photo reference and then the drawing itself.
All right, so here was the drawing. Let me just start with the simplified drawing, and I'm going to bring the photo over it. Okay, so you can see how in this drawing, I have to get used to the layers. Okay, there we go. So in this drawing, you can see that the nose was placed a little bit too low, but part of that is also the angle of the nose because her head is tilted up just a little bit. And one of the things I like to do when drawing a portrait tilt is to look at the relationship between the forehead and the tip of the nose and the tip of the nose and the chin. Looking at that angle and sketching that in before you worry about dividing up the smaller spaces. Of course, before you get that angle, you're going to need to know where the nose sits. But it's a really useful way to approach and simplify what is a very complex shape. So instead of worrying, and when you're drawing a profile, instead of going in and trying to match the profile perfectly, you know, and get everything right, it's better to start with a simple shape. You have your line here, you have your line here, get your placements, and then go in and break down. Let me clean that up a little bit. Go in and break down some of these smaller shapes. Okay, so can you see that a little better? And so let me take away the photo reference. So you can see that that shape starts to bring the head tilt up a little bit. And also looking at where the chin relates to the other parts of the features. So if I bring that photo back, and I look at where her chin, if I brought that almost straight up on that same tilt that the head is facing, you can see that it almost lines up perfectly. It has a slightly outward push. Okay, so my recommendation for correcting this drawing, my suggestions are here. So one of the things you're going to need to do is bring the eye up and the brow up. So you need to bring it up about that much. Notice that where this part dips in is about at the height of the eye. So where the bridge and the keystone shape here and the bridge of the nose are, that's about where the inner corner of the eye is. You're also going to need to give a little more space here and bring the ear back. I know her hair is kind of coming in and cutting off, so it might be a little hard to see, but when I have situations like that, I like to draw the ear all the way through and then bring the hair in front. Another thing you'll need to do is bring the chin forward, raise the corner. You have the mouth down here, it needs to come up, but that's partly because we needed to raise the nose up. So I want you to look at these major angles and check it against your drawing. Okay, I'm going to make my brush size a little better. Can you see that, guys, a little bit better? All right, so everything else in the drawing looked pretty good. This part here needed to be brought out and up just a little bit. The rest of the head size, anywhere where you don't see my white lines, don't change it. Those parts are correct. So just work on bringing that up. And what I suggest you do before you worry about getting into all this is first focus on getting the point of the nose placed in the correct height and the bottom of the nose features and this major angle established before you go in and carve away some of those others. Think of it like you're taking a piece of stone and you're going to be chipping away and carving the profile of the face. You're not going to go in for the detail first. You're going to look at the big tilt relationship, and then you're going to chisel away the smaller sections. All right, so good job. And I just also wanted to mention, I'm really impressed with everyone's work. You guys all did really fantastic, and so some of these changes, I'm being very, very picky, because I want you to have the best drawing possible. But I want to let you guys know you all did really, really well. I was really surprised at the quality, and some of you I could hardly find any corrections to make. So good job. And you'll see in the upcoming video today, it'll be uploaded after this class. You will see that I'm going to talk about placing the features, drawing the individual features. So even if you did go ahead and indicate the features of the face, you will want to watch those lectures before you jump in and make push your drawing a little further. And also, of course, look at my suggestions here. So also, I'm going to be emailing you guys this picture with the overlay individually. So after the live stream, I should have them to you by tonight. So I'll respond to the emails you sent in your homework with this overlay so that you can work on correcting it from my drawing. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Susan Leet, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Really nice, clean drawing. I really like how you simplified a lot of the shapes, and there were just a few suggestions. So before we talk about that, I just wanted to let me adjust the transparency. There we go. So as you can see, where's my drawing layer? Okay, so as you can see, you really kind of had most of the major proportional features in the right spot. Your eyes are good, the tilts are good, proportional relationship of the nose. The only thing I would say is that maybe her nose could be a little wider. The placement of the mouth, everything is pretty close. Your shadow maybe needs to come over just a little bit. And a little bit, watch the width of the hair. I know it's a little hard because her hair is very, very soft, and the edge between that and the background is a little hard to see. You can always lighten the photo a little bit and try to see some of the details in those areas, which it might have gotten a little dark. And then, of course, right here, the neck, you can see, is just a little bit wide. So just push that back a tiny bit. And the ear needs to just be a little lower, but I think the bottom placement of the ear is pretty good. So just bring that down. And so let me just erase those. And I'll bring up my little schematic over the top. Make sure there wasn't anything that I missed. Okay, so here is my, oh, and then here, you want to make sure you bring that back. A lot of people made this area a little too narrow, so just make sure you're having the correct width there. Okay, so, but overall, really, really nice job. Do you have any specific questions, Susan? I know there's a little bit of a delay between what I'm saying and okay, perfect. All right, well, take a look at your email probably by tonight, and you'll have this little schematic to work from. Really nice job. And this is what I kind of want to see in a block-in when I'm developing a portrait and when I have my students go through this process, because you have the right amount of information in there, but it's not getting too stuck in the smaller detailed shapes. So really, really nice job with that. Okay.
Do you want me to time
I think it's pretty good, yeah. Okay, so Sophie, are you on here right now, Sophie? I'm not sure if I saw you on here. Okay, so let me pull away my edits. Okay, so add my layer. All right. So Sophie, one of the things, your drawing looks pretty good. You have a nice simple contour around the edge of the hair and the face. There were just a few things that I noticed, and part of that is, and it's hard to see in the picture here, but the bottom of her actual chin sits a little bit lower. And I think what you were drawing was where you saw the shadow shape where the chin starts to turn under. And another thing is her jaw drops just a little bit more square, and you can see it a little bit wider over here as well. You'll also want to watch where you place the mouth. Your eyes are in the perfect spot, the nose is in a great spot, so just make sure that you don't bring that mouth too high. It's easy to end up closing this space a little too much. So remember, the opening of the mouth is typically in the upper third, but this model has a little bit of a smaller chin, and you might have had that up because you didn't have this space here. So now that we have that spacing for the new angle of the jawline and the chin, you can see that there's too much space here to here, and it just needs to come down almost about the same amount here. So sometimes if we don't get this placed 100%, it'll throw us off for some of the features. So I think you were on the right track, but because that was off, the mouth got off. Otherwise, your placement of the eyes is pretty good. The nose, I know in this photo, the nose is like coming out at a little bit of an angle that's separate from the angle of the face. So one of the things I would suggest is to just make sure that if you're doing a head-on angle, make sure you're keeping symmetry from that center line. Even if the nose is slightly off that symmetry, that's fine. But where it meets the plane of the main plane of that face, we want to make sure that point, the point between the lips, and the middle of the chin are all in good line with one another. Okay, so let me pull up my schematic, and so my suggestions for the drawing are pretty minor. Just double check your placement of the widths, and I know you have the inner corner marked, but you want to make sure you also mark that outer corner of the eye to make sure you get the right volume for the eyeballs. And check your center line and maybe adjust where that sits, because that's going to help you when you start getting into the mouth and placing the nose and that keystone shape. You can see I brought the jaw down just a little bit, and the hair shape was almost spot on. I just went ahead and edited a little bit. Part of the reason is sometimes I'll draw the hairline a little bit above where I actually see the hair's end, and that's because I want my tone to stop there, and then I'm going to bring a couple of edges down and so at the root to kind of break up the edge of the hair and make it feel a little more realistic. So I don't always bring my darkest tone for the hair mass all the way to the exact edge that I see. I hope that makes sense. And then I would suggest just indicating the rest of the hair shape and making sure you get a little bit more neck and shoulder in there. But otherwise, really good job, and I don't think you had sent in any specific questions other than just looking at the drawing. So I'm going to move on to the next person. Okay, Nora. Can you still hear me, Nora? Things are good? Okay, so, all right, perfect. All right, so you, again, really nice job with your block in. There were only a few things, and they're really not too major, that I saw that were off just a little bit. Part of it was the spacing here for the hairline. Just bring that back a little bit, and part of that is because the ear needs to just tilt back. One thing that you'll hear me talk about in today's lectures is how the ear sits on an angle. It is not perfectly upright, and our tendency is to want to draw it upright, but it actually exists on an angle that tilts back just a little bit. So make sure you move that and give a little more room there. Your placement of the jawline is pretty good. I'm not quite clear if this is supposed to be this edge of that shadow, or if you were looking for where you could kind of sense the jaw. If it was the shadow shape, just bring it up a little bit. You can see over here, you're almost perfectly in line here. But you do need to pull this out and forward and make her face a little more full from the other side of the mouth. And one of the reasons for that is I think your center line was pushed back a little bit too wide. So the center line should be, so when I'm drawing my center line, I'm looking for the angle right in between the brows. I ignore the nose because the nose protrudes off the face, but I look for the center point between the Cupid's bow of the lips, and then I look for kind of this squareness of the chin, and I try and find what would be the middle, including the foreshortening there. Okay, so, and then I connect those. So I think your center line can move over, and that's going to help you place the mouth a little bit more accurately. So let me bring up the schematic here. There we go. So I've marked out some of the changes. I brought that, oops. So I brought that line, why is it doing that? Oh, it's not visible. Okay. I am a traditional artist, not necessarily a digital artist. Okay, so yeah, I brought that line up a little bit, and I just want you to check the height of your mouth and move that center line over. Your height of the eyes and the brow is spot on. Really good job with that. Your hairline, same thing. Face shape is really, really good. Your heights and your widths overall were pretty good, other than just bringing that ear back and bringing that forward just a tiny bit. So just check some of those, and you'll get this schematic a little bit later. Did you have any questions? Or was there anything that you were not sure of as you were working on this drawing that you would like me to talk about? So let me bring that back here. So you can see, all right, perfect. Okay, so you will get this schematic here, and you can see just the slight differences. Mouth goes up.
Just as the center line was her nemesis.
Yeah, it can be really hard to get. It's one of those things that it takes a bit of time to get used to learning to see, and one of the easiest things for me, like I said, is to try and identify some key points. So I look for right in between the keystone shape here, and then I look for where I see the points of the lips come together, and so I'll draw a line kind of going there, and then I'll look where I find the estimate of the mouth. But even in my demonstration, I end up moving that center line around a little bit as I start to kind of get a feel for my drawing, so don't worry, it's really hard to get perfect in the beginning. You also said I was going for the edge of the jaw, not the shadow. Okay, so yeah, so just when you do go in to start marking your shadow shapes, when we talk about that, just make a note of that spacing there. but really good job. And eyes are pretty much in, oh, that was actually it. The eyes are in the right spot, but there was a slight difference in tilt between the reference and yours. It's a really minor. I wouldn't worry about it too much, and it'd be a pretty easy fix. Okay. Megan Thurman, are you online right now? You're welcome, Nora. I'm glad I could help. Okay. I'm not sure if Megan's... Oh, there you are. Hi, Megan. There's a little bit of a delay from when I'm talking and when you guys actually see the stream, so I just wanted to make sure you were here. Really nice, clean drawing. I really think you did a great job with the hair shape and the mask shape. There were just a few things that I wanted to note, and that is the placement of the height of the eyes and the brow ridge. So, and I think your center line, as you can kind of see here, in relationship to the center here, is just a little bit skewed. So you're going to want to move that over and bring your brow line up just a little bit. Your eyes are pretty close, but you're almost hitting the bottom eyelids, and you can see that the actual line between the eyes and then your line, it's a little wider here and narrower there. So just make sure you bring that up. When we draw the center line to the eyes, we want to kind of aim for the tear ducts. So something like that, and we want to make sure that these are parallel to each other.
Remember, you can make a straight line by drawing.
Yeah. Okay, so bringing your center line, ignoring the nose, because her nose does skew to the right just a little bit. So that should be your center line. Your face shape is pretty spot on, so I don't think you need to make any changes there. Let me bring up the schematic and erase my yellow line. So you can see some of the changes that I suggested. Shorten the ear just a little bit and bring in the hair shape a tiny bit there. Usually when I'm also drawing the edge of the hair, similar to where I'm drawing the root of the hair meeting the forehead, I like to leave a little bit of space so that my shadow, when I land my dark tone, I can kind of blend it out and soften the edge and also create a few little stray hairs to create a more natural hair texture. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah, you can see your eyebrows are here. They should be here, and eyes, bring those up. Your nose also needs to come up to give a little more space. Your mouth was really close. I think your corners were pretty spot on. Her mouth has a little bit of an upward tilt. So what I want you to do when you're developing more of the details is, and the features, is make sure you look at where the opening of the mouth sits in the center compared to the widths, because her mouth kind of does kind of that shape. So just pay attention to that, and otherwise really good job. Nice clean lines. The neck also needs to be a little bit wider here. It depends on your angle, but the mastoid muscle comes from back here and angles in towards the pit of the neck. So it's easy to want to make this really narrow, and she does have a pretty slender neck, but just make sure you're not making it too pencil thin. Just bring that out a little bit more on this side. All right, good job. Do you have any questions, Megan? You're very welcome. Good job. All right, Linda, you're up next. How you doing? We will get that coffee together soon. Everyone, Linda lives in my hometown, and she's taken a couple of workshops with me at the local art center. So I'm happy to have her, but I promised her a cup of coffee sometime when things aren't so crazy. Okay. So let me pull up the portrait first. Okay. All right, your block-in looks really, really nice. The hair shape, the face shape, the mask shape looks spot on. I really didn't see much change in the contour other than a little bit here. She has a little bit more of like a rounded corner of the jaw. It's a little bit more like wide and rounded. So a lot of times on men, you'll see more of an acute angle, and it's usually around the height of the mouth. But on her, it's very, very soft and kind of rounded. So I did say to start with angles, but all you would need to do is really bring this line down about that much, and that should, and then make it symmetrical on this side. Leave the chin where it was. And then similar to some of the other front-facing views, look at your center line again. So if I plot my points, you know, her eyebrow's like over here, so it's going to be something like that. So it feels like your center line was maybe just a little bit over, mostly up here. So maybe it's just that the eyebrow needs to, and the eye needs to move over to the right just a little bit on that one. Let me bring up my schematic here. Okay, so some of my main suggestions is be careful about making the hair a little too big on that side. She has a side kind of a side part here. This is the back of her head. So it is more full on this side, so just make sure you bring that in. And let's see, the ear maybe is a little tall there. Start to bring it down, and the bottom of the lobe of the earlobe should come down as well. You can see I kind of rounded out the lower jaw. And this is really minor. I mean, if you're looking there, the change is very small, but it will help you get a little bit more of her likeness. Your placement of the mouth is good. Just watch this corner. It needs to come in, or this line here needs to come down just a little bit, but overall the mouth was in a good spot, the nose was in a good spot. Just check your center line and make sure that your symmetry is there. So bring that, make sure that keystone shape is symmetrical, because you are head on, you won't have any foreshortening there. And then from that center line, make sure you have equal distance between the eyes. And typically it's about one eye's distance between the eyes, and there's another eye distance here. That varies a little bit, but that's one of the standard proportions to look out for. Otherwise, looks really good, so just make those changes and then start to develop the features after you watch the next lecture, because I talk about drawing the features in detail, and I cover front, middle, or three-quarter and side view, and I also have a lot of references for eye practice that you can do in a sketchbook before you further develop this drawing. So really nice job. Do you have any questions, Linda? Yeah, small changes make a big difference. They add up over, a bit, and especially if you're drawing something smaller than life size, every really minor change makes a big difference, and it all adds up. So if the eye's slightly high or the jaw is slightly low, those two combined can add up. So yeah, small changes make a big difference. So let me know if you have any questions or anything else you'd like me to address in your drawing. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that keystone shape when I talk about the anatomy of the eye and the bridge of the nose in the short lectures coming today. Those will be uploaded later on, and so I will talk about that. It's a really useful shape, and yeah, no problem. All right, so let me move on. Yeah, but good job overall, Linda. Oops. All right, Kim. Your profile, I know you had sent me two. Kim, are you here? Kim Farrell. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Okay. Oh, hi, Kim. All right, just making sure you're still with us. Okay, so really nice job on your block-ins. I will send you the edit also for the profile, but I'm just going to cover this one because the profile was really, really close, and the only issue I saw was a similar one to the other profile that I had. Oh, okay, perfect. I did edit both, so I will email you both, so you'll get both schematics, but the profile was really, really close, and I felt like this one probably had a few more important changes, so I want to cover this one during the live lecture. Okay, so really nice block in. You have a nice clean sense of line, and I know you said you had developed the features a little bit ahead of time, but that's okay. I'm going to suggest that you make the edits that I suggest for placement, and then watch the features videos, and then go back in and take a look at your features. You didn't get too detailed, you just kind of started to place some of those main shapes. And you have you have the degree in graphic design, right? You've worked in graphic design. I can kind of tell from some of the angularity in the drawing. So you have a pretty sharp eye. Okay, yeah, I thought so. Okay, so so one of my suggestions first is just to look at your width here for the back of the head. Just bring that in a little bit. It's not that far off, but because the head is foreshortened, that part turns back a little bit more quickly. So just readdress that shape. And then same thing with the width here. The ear, you have the tilt, it's just too far forward. So the ear should be placed somewhere around there. The only other suggestion I have is to drop the bottom of the chin in the contour here, but leave your lines here where they're placed, and your jawline is fine where it's placed as well. The only other suggestion I have is bringing that shoulder down a little bit and bringing the neck in. Let me bring up the schematic just to make sure there isn't anything else. Okay, so you can see the major changes I suggest are in white, so there really aren't too many. I would look a little closer at the opening crease in the mouth. I know it's a little hard to see in the picture because it's all dark. Her upper lip is casting a little bit of a shadow on the bottom lip. But there was a slight difference that I found in the placement of the lip, but you really did capture her likeness already. So, you know, it will be just a matter of actually leaving this positioned, but bringing that down a little bit. And then when you go in to draw the eye, watch the video on drawing the 3/4 eye, because this is a little bit too far open. It's going to, you do have that nice kind of diamond shape, but this is going to cut over a little bit. But I know you weren't getting too into that, so watch the videos first on the anatomy of the eyes and the eye socket, and then go in and just refine that shape. And then her hair shape comes in just a little bit more. I'm not as picky about hair shapes except for where it is in the back of the head, because I don't want that to get too big. But down here you can have it stay out if you want that as a design in your drawing. That's no problem. Do you have any questions? Oh, you weren't way off. It was just a little bit. You did a really nice job on this. And I noticed in your profile view, I'm not going to pull it up, but it was a similar issue to the other profile view where the tilt of the head was a little too straight, and her head is tilted back just a little bit. So you'll see in the schematic that I'll send you in an email my suggestions. It'll look like this with the white marks, and that'll be it. All right, thank you. Thanks, Kim. All right, Kelly? Are you still logged in, Kelly? Kelly Ty? Hopefully I'm saying your name right. Kelly.
Sure.
You go by Kelly, right? Your name on here says Kim, and I just want to make sure. Yes, Kelly. Okay. I just like to get people's names right. Okay, really nice job on your block-in. The main thing I noticed was actually that you had tilted the face a little bit and your center line a little too much like this, and it needs to be a little bit more like this. So the main thing that needs to happen is you need to bring that jaw forward in this section here. So you have your line here about where her mouth is positioned. So what I would do is actually erase this line towards the top and bottom. So because this hits almost exactly where her mouth is, erase this section and erase this section and just bring it out a little bit, and that should lock in, and you'll know that that's the other corner of your mouth. And if you bring that up, you'll find almost straight up, you'll find the nose.
That whole thing is tilted.
Yeah, the whole portrait is a little tilted. Okay, and then what you're going to want to do, because your eyes are lining up pretty good, you're going to want to bring the ear down to about here. And remember, if you kind of keep that tilt, you'll find, actually, that could be why you placed the ear a little high. Her ear is actually a little bit lower in this perspective than the typical placement. So that could be why you would place the ear a little high. So just make sure you're checking. You could also bring the line straight across. If that helps, you see a little bit more accurately where the placement of the ear is. And okay, so let me bring up the schematic real quick. Oh, and then the neck here is a little bit too short. So we want to bring that down and bring this, oops, I need to erase that. And then since you're bringing the chin forward, you're going to bring that there. Okay, so let me bring up the clean schematic and let's go over that just one more time. So I think what happened is, at least I went based on where you had placed the tilt of the eyes. So here and here, I lined that up for the portrait, and that's how I could tell that some of the tilt of the lower part of the face was a little bit off, and that your center line, which is over here, it needs to go over. And and it's nice because where you have the drawing, those changes are going to be really easy to make. You're just going to push that forward, pretty much keep the height of the mouth. It just goes up a little bit. The nose goes up a very small amount. And where you have the corner of the chin is good. And where you have this line, just bring it down a little bit so we're seeing more of this underplane. And your drawing is going to lock right into place. Do you have any questions that you would like me to address before we move on? All right, you're welcome. Thank you, Kelly. Good job. And keep posting on Facebook. I'd like to see the drawing develop. Okay. How's everyone holding up? I'm not putting you to sleep, am I? Okay, I'm gonna move on to, sorry. All right, great. All right, Kayla Carson, are you logged in? All right, so I'm gonna, this is another profile view, so those of you who want to move on and do another drawing and maybe try a profile. Remember, this one is having a similar issue to one of the other ones, and overall you have a great likeness here. There's really just some very minor changes. The bigger shapes are there, but the main one is, again, that tilt between the nose and the chin. So when I draw profiles, I always typically start by trying to get that angle, and then I chisel away those other areas. So bring that forehead back a little bit and look at where it disappears into the hairline at that point there. And then the eye, which you have kind of loosely placed here, needs to go up, and the brow needs to go up as well. And then when you bring in the forehead here, it's going to just make this area through here a little bit more slender. So let me bring up the schematic because there really aren't that many other places for corrections. So make sure I get that in. Okay, so yeah, you can see where I brought this back. And also, because we're bringing that back, we're going to bring the hairline back. I think you had the spacing pretty close, but because we're moving the forehead back, the hairline needs to come back a little bit there. But it won't move the whole hair shape back. It was just through this section here leading into the ear. Another thing I noticed, oh, and there's the placement of the eye. Make sure you're not bringing the eye too far forward. What I like to do, and also there is, I want to make sure you watch the video on drawing the eye in profile, because there's some really important information about the anatomy of the eye and the tilt relationship between the upper lid and the lower lid. Right now you have it a little bit straight, but you can see that I've moved the eye up and I've given a little more space there. Part of that's because we've moved this line back as well. Did you email it to me, Hugh? Hi, Vicky. Thanks for tuning in. Could you check my phone? And I think he might have texted it to me. Oh, okay. Hugh, I'll have Josh look into that really quick. And, oh, you sent it in iMessage. That could be why I missed it. I'm sorry. I'll get on that. I'll have Josh pull that up, and I'll do a live preview here at the end. So just hang in tight. Sorry, Hugh. Okay, so back to the drawing. Okay, so after that, my main suggestion is to pay attention to the kind of upward tilt of the head. By pushing that back, you're going to start to get that, but you're also going to want to pull that jawline forward, or that chin forward just a little bit and down. Give her a little more space here. And you also want to look at that tilt relationship between the upper lip and the lower lip, and then bring that corner back and bring the corner of the nostril back just a little bit. I mean, your drawing was very, very close, so with these minor changes, it'll lock right into place. So do you have any questions, Kayla? Or any other areas you want me to address? Send that to my email, and then you'll find, I think he's using the same reference. Yeah, it's easy to push the forehead out too far. Just push it back a little bit and your drawing's going to lock right into place and it'll look just like her. Really nice job with the likeness overall. And yeah, I can't wait to see your drawing develop. Good job.
We can airdrop this to the iPad.
Okay. All right, let's wait to do that then. Okay.
We'll pull up one that has that same reference.
Okay. Hugh, I found your, oh, you used number 6? Okay, perfect. I found your picture and I'm going to airdrop it to the iPad so I can do the live drawing over it just after. Yeah, we do put a bit of ourselves into our portraits. I always overemphasize the frowning lines between my eyebrows on everyone else. It's something I have in my features. No, Hugh, it's fine. No need to send again through email. I've got it. Thank you. Okay, Kayla, so we did yours. Jonathan Vazano, is that how you say your last name? Are you with us, Jonathan?
Here.
All right. Hi, Jonathan. Really nice job on your block in. I like the simplicity that you kind of left it at, and I don't have too many suggestions, as you can see, but let me So these lines are actually accidental. I had drawn them over the photo. Oops. So don't pay attention to those just yet. Yeah, there really wasn't too much. Your eye placement seems pretty good. And the main one, I think, was the mouth. You had it placed up here, and it needs to be brought down a little bit. Your block-in's really clean, and I'm not sure what this line was signifying, but if it was part of the shadow shape, I just wanted you to know to bring that over. So let me bring up the schematic here. So yeah, you can see I brought the mouth down. Here's your corners. Bring it down a little bit so that the corners are a little lower, and you'll also end up bringing down her bottom lip. And you're also going to, you rebel you, Hugh. So yeah, Johnny, you'll bring the jawline or the chin line down just a little bit. And that's, I think I represented that with the shadow shape. Yeah, the corner of the mouth, I mean the chin. And then your eye line just needs to come up a very small amount, and that's mostly just because I wanted to make sure that your eye line was centered at the placement of the tear duct. So just make sure you have that. And the neck here, it didn't look like you had gotten too much into that, but you want to drop this shoulder a little bit, give her a little more length in the neck, and bring your shadow shape down. But otherwise, really good job. Do you have any questions, Johnny? Oh, okay. Here, let me...
Does he mean his photo reference?
Do you mean the photo reference, Johnny, that you're working from? Okay. Are you working from a monitor, like a screen, or are you working from a print? Oh, you're very welcome. If you're having trouble with your photo reference, oh, from the print, okay. It could be that your print is printing out too dark. I did provide the JPEG version, the photo version, apart from the PDF for these pictures, and I added it to the first lecture section. So if you look there, you'll see another section called JPEG or GPEG, or JPEG, JPEG. And if you look in there, you can find your reference and download just the photo, and you should be able to manipulate the picture and lighten it up on the computer. If you can't, just send me a message, either an email or on Facebook, and I'll lighten the photo for you and send it back to you and see if that helps. Okay, does that sound good? One of the reasons I added the photo versions is because a few people had complained that the prints were coming up a little too dark. All right, perfect. Thank you, Johnny. Really good job. I can't wait to see your drawing develop. All right, you're up, Daniela. Are you in here? Are you live? Now, for some of you, I actually had to darken your drawing. You might notice a difference. just so that my white lines would show up on your paper. So if your pictures turned out too dark, you can just lighten them up, but I just wanted you to be able to see where the corrections were pretty clearly on the screen.
I don't think Daniela is in.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and move on. So, Daniela, your drawing block in is nice and clean, and you have a really nice mask and hair shape. The hair shape is almost spot on. So, the only thing I saw was right here. You could bring the back of the head in just a little bit. It got a little maybe full in this area. And I realized that the photo is a little dark and it might be hard to see exactly where that is. So you could always try lightening the picture and see if you can see where that edge or contour is. And then I want you to focus on bringing the ear up just a little bit. Not by very much. You had dropped it down to here. It should be a little bit higher. And then same thing with some of the features. Your center line seems pretty good. It might need to come forward down in the lower half. But your opening to the mouth needs to go up, the nose just a tiny bit, but the eyes is pretty good. So let me bring, oh, and then you'll want to bring out this area. It's almost directly across from the bend in her jaw here. Her mouth area is a little bit more full and the chin comes forward just a little bit. And what that's going to do is bring your center line for the chin over to about there. Okay, so let's take that. Yeah, your drawing is really nice and clean. Hopefully on the lighter gray you can still see the marks. So my only suggestion was with the tilt here, just bring that up on this side. Leave it where it is on the left side, but on the right side, bring it up a little higher, and then make sure the eyes are parallel. And how I found, let me bring that up again. How I found the relationship tilt is because I was looking at corner to corner and approximately corner to where the corner is going to sit there, and you should see a relationship between those. Sometimes, and I do talk about this in the features video that'll be uploaded today, some people have a slightly upward tilt between the tear duct and the outer corner of the eye, and she does have that very, very slight amount, but it's not too evident to where it'll change the angle of this overall. So I would just go for that average and bring that up a little bit, and you can see here where I want the nose to be brought up, and it's very small amounts, small increments. This should be the opening of the mouth, and this should be the bottom of the lip. And then we're going to bring that chin, that corner of the chin up just a little bit, and bring that brow ridge and its transition. Now where you have the cheekbone here is exactly where it needs to be, so don't change that, but just bring out this little section and this section here. And that should do it. Your drawing looks really nice, so once you bring that mouth up, you'll start to get a feel for those proportions. Make these corrections first, and then start to watch the features videos, and then you can start to place the features in that. All right, good job. If you have any follow-up questions because you weren't able to attend live, just email them to me and I'll get right back to you. So Adrian, are you with us, Adrian? Adrian Diaz? Okay. Okay. Well, Adrian, pretty nice clean block in. The main thing I'm seeing has more to do with heights. So I lined up your eyes. Those are right where they need to be. especially in relationship to the forehead and the top of the head and the chin. My suggestion would be to bring your line for the brow up just a little bit. Where you have this line is almost a perfect match for her eyelid, where we see that shadow. So you could leave that mark there, just give yourself a new line for the brow ridge and pay attention to that shape. Your placement for the nose and the eye is a little far back, so the corner of her eye, the inner corner, it's hard to see because it's in the shadow, but it's here to here. And so if we take that and we bring it down, you'll find the new corner of the nose. And then if you bring that down, you'll find the new corner of the mouth. So get the eyes positioned first, and then go in and adjust the corners of the mouth and those features. And I think your tilt here is a little low. You want to bring, I think you had this corner in the right height, but this one needs to come up. Okay, so let me erase that and I'll show you the simplified schematic drawing over that. Okay, so yeah, you can see some of the changes I suggested here. Bring your hair out, bring it out here. These are more minor, but this one is kind of important because we want to make sure we have enough width to the back of the head. Of course, dropping the ear and then repositioning this shape compared to where you have it placed and bringing that eye in closer. This spacing here between the corner of the eye and the plane of the nose is always tricky with 3/4 view. Even I don't get it right 100% of the time. I have to really make sure I check and check and check. So a lot of times what I'll do is find a comparative measurement that looks equal. So it might be like something like this, meeting the corner of where the nose comes out. If I find that that's true in my photo reference, then I'll use that compared to the width of the eye, or maybe I'll compare this distance. So I try to look for something that's equal. It really depends on the model and the person, so I try to find it and then I'll use that to my advantage in my drawing. And then you're going to want to bring that chin and jawline forward. Your line is really, really close. It's just a little thick, so I couldn't tell if you were indicating the inside or the outside of that line. So try to thin up your lines a little bit and bring that up a tiny bit. Okay? All right, nice job. And if you have any follow-up questions, just email them to me if you're not live here now. All right, Diana. Are you with us, Diana? How's Scottsdale? I don't know if she's with us right now.
It hasn't quite updated yet. So
well, I miss you, Diana. Diana used to be in my figure drawing classes and my portrait drawing classes in LA. And then she moved away. All right, so let me bring that back. And Diana has had lots of practice with block-ins. We did it for years with cast drawing and everything. So let's start just to talk. Your shapes look really nice. I love the simplification you did here. Your nose is in the right spot. Everyone seems to be exaggerating the forehead a little bit. Because her head's tilted up, just push that back a tiny bit, but your hair is in the right place. Your features seem to be, and your eye socket here is in the right place. I know it's a little obscured because her hair starts to kind of come in front of the ear, but you might try just visualizing where the ear is positioned and kind of loosely sketch it in just to help you find, you know, the transition into the jawline. And yeah, and that was pretty much it, Diana. You did a really nice job. And I did have that lecture on drawing the features, and I talk about drawing the foreshortening of the eye in profile. And so make sure you watch that. Let me bring up the schematic to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, you didn't even draw in the detail of the eye yet, which is good. You just have like a general placement. So yeah, just start to, it's hidden. Why is it hidden? Okay, there it goes. I just need to erase that. Okay, get a handle on this. All right, so.
You can clear the layer too.
Yeah, I know. I'll get a little bit better at this part. Okay, yeah, so make sure when you're placing the eye, I think that was about the center of the eye, your mark, the mark that I put there. So just pay attention to where you place that and make sure you watch the spacing between the bridge of the nose and where the front of the eye is. And also remember that from a profile view, the eye will sit on a slight diagonal on this end. So yeah, really nice job. Just take a look at these areas with the white. I think the chin was a little bit too low here. And then you can open up this space here because you're bringing the forehead back. And yep, that's it. Other than maybe kind of sketching in where the ear is. You don't have to draw it in a lot of detail, but it always helps me when something's hidden to sketch in where I think it sits, and then I draw the hair over that. And that way when I'm drawing, I will actually indicate a little bit of the ear and then draw the hair over it, and you'll kind of see that poking through the hair and the gaps. Oh, and one last thing, just bring the hairline up here a little bit fuller at the top. And then this slopes here, so pay attention to that shape. But really nice job, Diana.
I don't think she's in there.
Yeah, okay, so if you have any questions, just send me an email. All right, we're almost through everyone. So Beth.
Got Hugh too.
And Hugh, don't worry, we're still coming to you. Okay, so let's see. Beth, are you with us? It's okay if you can't be. I just wanted to see if you had any specific questions. All right, your block in looks really, really nice. Everyone did such a good job. I feel like I'm saying that for everyone. Okay, so one thing I want to kind of emphasize is bringing that hair down just a little bit. And then watch where you're making it maybe a little too full at the back of the head. And your ear placement was really close, but I felt like it maybe could be a little shorter. And then the main thing that threw me off, I think, was that these features need to come up. So like your size of the head and your mask shape is really, really nice. Other than making this maybe a little bit more full on the side, the main thing you want to work on is bringing the features into the correct placement. So let me bring up the schematic because it's going to be a little easier to see with your drawing. There we go. All right, so as you can see here, here is where you have your brow ridge and then your eyes. And where you have the center of your eyes is almost where the bottom of your eyes should be. So just make sure, and the top of the brow is where the top of the eyeball should feel or should be positioned. So just bring up another line. You can leave these here just as markers for where the ball is going to be, and just move your ball up. So just move your ball here up into that position using the lines that you've already established here. And then add this line here for the brow ridge. And I like to always draw in this little plane here so that I can start to think about the spacing here on the right side. And then your nose and the mouth is going to come up. Your other contour around the jawline and the whole length to the width of the face is looking perfect. You just want to bring that roundness into the lower jaw. It's just opposite of the corner of the jaw over here on the right side. So where you have that turning, just go straight across and you'll start to see where it's fuller on the left. And bringing the neck forward. And that is everything that I saw in your drawing. Bring that down on the right shoulder just to give a little more elongation here in the neck. All right, and good job. Just if you have any follow-up questions, just go ahead and email me. And that goes for anyone. Actually, if I've already given you your critique, but you think of something that you had as a follow-up question that you forgot to ask, just send me an email and I'll try and get back to you today if I can. If not, I'll get back to you on Monday. Oops, I forgot to look at the name. Carolina, are you with us? Hopefully I'm saying your name right. If it's Carolina or Carolina, I'm not sure. Please let me know if I said your name wrong.
Yeah, everyone did a good job on their block-in.
I know. Yeah, my husband just said, wow, everyone did such a good job on their block-in. They did. I was really impressed. I was hoping I could find at least some to correct.
Someone to tear apart.
Okay, so really nice clean lines. It seems like everyone pretty much had that. They had a great sense of how to keep the simple block in and clean lines. So that's really great. I don't know if you guys are used to doing that, but it really, really does help because when you get to this stage, and we're about to move into the next stage where we place the features, it makes a huge difference in the end result for your drawing. Okay, so some pretty minor suggestions for this one. We have the tilt for the brow and the tilt for the eyes is a little bit more steep than what you had placed here. So I would just reassess that, and your center line here could come forward just a little bit. You want to look for the center here in the mouth, the little part in between the cupid's bow of the lip, and then the center part in the chin, and giving her a little bit more fullness there on the left. Your nose is going to come up just a little bit to give a little more space between the opening of the mouth. And also this upper lip comes up just a little bit in the middle, but your placement of the corner is spot on. So leave the corner. Other than, yeah, actually both corners are pretty good. It's just that upper lip pushes up a little bit on her. And so her center line is a little higher. And I do talk about that in the lecture, how her lip shape is a little bit different from like a standard lip shape. So make sure you watch that lecture before you go in and detail the features. The only other suggestion I have is the ear. Bring it down and bring that neck back and look at that gesture here. So your line comes up a little high. It needs to drop down and give a little more space here. So let me clean that up and bring up the schematic. All right, so there's your drawing. So you can see where I brought that line up for the ear. Your spacing here is good. This just needs to move up and you correct that tilt. Bring the bottom of the nose up. The mouth corners are pretty good. I don't know if this was a mouth corner or if that was like her little smile line that you were indicating, but just make sure that the corner of her mouth is here. And then her bottom lip, where that little underplane starts to happen, is around there. And part of the reason we're moving all the features up is because we need to bring the corner of her chin up. This is that shadow, let's bring that up. That's that shadow edge. And then this is that underplane edge. Oops. There, as you can see there. So, pretty good job. I don't have any corrections for the hair, so it's just those shapes there. So really nice job.
Okay, Hugh is up next, then we can do the questions.
Okay, yeah.
So what's the number 6 reference? Who did number 6 on here? Go to the gallery.
Let me see his. This is the number 6 because it's the one I worked from.
It is?
Yep.
Okay. So go to gallery.
All right, everyone just bear with me. I have to put together Hugh's.
Okay, so we will. Right?
Yep.
Okay, and then you can just delete that. Okay, let me share this.
Oh, it's locked. I don't know why. I could
just
just make it go away, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So hold on a sec.
My husband's the techie. He's the one who's helped me with all the tech side of this. So just bear with us for another minute, and then I'm going to get to your questions that you guys are typing after I finish this last critique.
Is that the airdrop for my iPad?
Yeah, it'll pop up on here.
Okay. All right. So then we go
Back to Procreate, right?
Yeah. Show them my weird stuff.
Okay. Insert a photo. All right.
And then now you can
Resize it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All you have to do is just.
I'm gonna delete that. Okay, so let me just resize this real quick, Hugh. And
You there, and then you do this.
oh, that's right. All right.
And if you do freeform, you can kind of get it in there
Okay.
as best you can.
All right. All right. So let's see. Make sure I'm getting it the right size. All right. So now what do I do? Just hit that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
And now you can, do levels and.
Okay. All right. Hugh, are you ready? Oh, yes, I do. Okay, so let me just create a new layer that I can sketch on with. All right, so are you ready? All right, perfect. Okay, so it looks like the lines that you have here are a perfect match for the top and bottom of the eye. So I would leave those there and just put another line above it for the brow ridge. And try to get, and you can go for the top of the brow if you want, or go for the middle. Just remember that if you go for the middle, the brow is going to arch above that. And I will actually, Hugh, I'm going to send you the little white drawing schematic after the end of this, so I'll email that to you so you have something a little more permanent to work from. Okay, and so your center line looks spot on for this area. but it tilts back maybe a little far for the forehead. So I would just straighten that out just so that you can make sure you get the symmetry in this part. So let me clean that up a little bit. So your center line is going to be like that, and it's going to hit this part and then come down and connect to the center line that you already have established. The mouth, now it looks like you have the corner of her mouth placed correctly. It just needs to come over to the left a little bit more. Remember that the corner of the mouth lines up around with the tear duct and the tip of her nose for the other side. So the
jaw line is off on the back of the head.
Yes, I'm going to get to that. So the only other part I see is that maybe you could bring this out. It looks like this is all in good position. So you just want to bring that lower section out. And then her jawline is a little further back. And so is her ear. And then I would simplify her hairline into something like that. The back of the head is also maybe a little full through sections. I don't know if that's your line or if this is the line that you were going to keep, but change it to something like that. And then also when you're bringing the ear back, back this way, the opening, the mastoid muscle that kind of comes this way is going to bring that line of the neck further back and then connect to there. And then let's just bring this part down from your line and back. So what I'm going to do real quick is take away the photo, and you can see the corrections. It's a little tough to see in yellow, but maybe I can darken your photo a little bit. Or recolor the lines.
I think you can make them like brighter.
Ah, perfect. There we go. Yeah, let's go with white.
Okay.
There we go. My husband is the techie genius. Okay, so making this class possible. I couldn't do it without him. I have to give him credit.
She's just being nice.
No, I'm not. Okay. All right, so let me just choose white. So did that answer your question, Hugh? Yeah, the jawline could come back to about there, and then your mouth can come over to the left a little bit. And then watch where you place the corners of the eyes. They should be placed here. I'll send you a cleaner drawing in an email that's a little easier to read than this sketch. Do you have any other questions? All right, great. Send me your update after you make some of the corrections, and watch the video on the features. It's going to give a lot of information for drawing, placing the eye at 3/4 view, and talking about foreshortening. Okay, so let's get to some of the last minute questions.
Do you know if this platform has whitelisted VPNs?
Oh, if you shut off, Nate, I'm reading your question now. If you shut off VPN, Comcast throttles my streams. We will look into that. I'm not sure. I have this on the highest quality setting, so there is a bit of a delay for the live stream. And so I'll look into that for the next one to make sure that it's not causing any problems on your guys' end. I know there is an optimal setting for real-time interaction.
Ask Nate if he's having an issue with our...
Nate, are you having an issue watching the live stream? Is it like skipping too much for you? And Kim, I'm going to get to your question in just a second.
We have two before.
I have a couple of questions just before yours. Nate, let's connect on Facebook chat a little bit later, and we'll try and figure out that VPN thing. I'm not sure. This is the first live stream we've done, so we'll make sure, and we'll kind of do a little research on that and make sure it's not giving you any trouble. Okay, can you read me some of the questions?
Okay, so the first question is from Jesus. He wants to know if you could talk about the Riley abstraction and how we can use it along with your method for the proportions.
Okay, so the Riley method, Josh. Jesus. Okay, I'm going to answer your question about the Riley method. I will talk a little bit later about the rhythms in the planes of the head, but I don't actually use the Riley method personally. My husband does. He really likes that method, but I always found it a little confusing with the planes of the head. There are some correlations between the two, and I'd be happy to create like a little upload comparing the two methods. I will talk a little bit about rhythms in the face that I use, especially around the mouth and kind of dissecting the more subtle planes in the face. What was the question, the rest of the question?
He wants to know if how they can use it along with your method for the proportions.
Okay, so
finding those.
So yeah, the Riley method, just like any other drawing method for getting the planes of the head, but also the proportions of the head, they start very similarly. I don't know if you're familiar with, why am I forgetting the name?
I wasn't listening.
Sorry, I'm pulling a blank right now. There is some way to kind of pull the two together. I tend to refer to, what's the book? The book that the illustration book that we have. Loomis, the Andrew Loomis book.
Drawing the Head and Hands.
Drawing the Head and Hands. So
by Andrew Loomis.
Yeah. So a lot of what I do refer to is the Drawing the Head and Hands by Andrew Loomis. He does the kind of the ball method for drawing the head. So yeah, you can kind of pull the two techniques together. A lot of my process is a kind of mashup of both an illustrative approach and like head construction and comparative measurement, and also a more academic approach which focuses on the abstract shapes and the envelope shapes, which I learned doing sight size. So I kind of like to combine them because there's benefits to using both methods. If you have further questions, I hope I answered your question okay. But if you want to know more, just send me an email.
Do you know the rhythm?
Next question.
All right, from Nate.
Nate, you asked.
Let's see. I'm sure she'll cover them in the videos for this week. Are the brow lines and eye lines the far end corners of opposing features? So ask Nate if he could maybe.
Okay, Nate, could you clarify what you meant? You said, you asked if the brow line and the eye lines far end corners of the opposing features. So do you mean like when let me pull up a head drawing here real quick. So do you mean, let me draw in a different color. Are you talking about these parts, or are you talking about the distance between the horizontal lines?
Take that off and redraw on
So when you're talking about the far edges, do you mean these points, like in their relationship to one another, or are you talking about the height relationships? So are the brow lines straight lines from one end to the other for the horizontal lines? Oh, okay. I think I understand. So usually when I'm drawing the eyebrow, let me just develop this a little bit, and you will see when I talk about the features how I kind of develop this. So this line is kind of where the two brows start to come together, okay? So usually the brow hair arches up, and I try to end these approximately where I see the ends of the shape. So like you said, I might stop it there instead of drawing it all the way across. So the eyebrows will probably arch, most likely, especially on a female, above that line. It's just a center line so that I can get the relationship between the brows to relate. And when I start to establish the top lid and the bottom lid, or I'm drawing the ball of the eye, I want to make sure those positions relate. Did I answer your question? I hope I understood it right.
Let's wait for Johnny. Let's wait for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so our brow lines straight. Okay, great. Okay, I'm glad I answered that. Yeah, so they might arc above. Eyebrows are rarely straight on anyone. There's always a slight arc. It might be more full, like on a male. It might be more straight across the bottom, but you'll still have that arc across the top. You want to look at the spacing, too, between the top eyelid crease and where the brow is, and that will give you a clue as to whether your arch for the brow needs to come above this line here. So if you see more space, once you get your eyeball in, more space there, you know you're going to arch the brow up from that line. Okay. So
Johnny has a question, and maybe you should.
And there was one more question before that, though. I think, yeah.
Oh, do you do this process for your own drawings, like Procreate?
Who asked that? Kim?
Kim.
Kim? Okay, so I'm going to get to your question. Sorry, it took a little bit. Question was...
Do you do this for your own drawings?
Yeah, do I do this process for my own drawings? And the answer is yes. When I'm starting my portraits, I always start from general and I work to more and more specific shapes so that it gives me the best results, especially because I do portraiture for a living. I do commissions quite often, so it's important to get the likeness of the person in the drawing. And so I spend a long time in this block-in stage, and I spend as much time as it takes to start to get a likeness. And if I feel like my likenesses are getting off or I'm having trouble, I will actually do an overlay similar to what I'm doing for your drawings. I will, because oftentimes my commissions are remote or long distance, and so I will be working from a photograph. And so I can do the overlay and make sure my major proportions are in place before I start to draw any of the features.
You just answered her question.
Yeah, occasionally. I don't tend to do it, but I used to do it more often when I first started because my eye wasn't as tuned to it and I was still kind of getting used to drawing this way. I used to draw very detailed in the beginning, and when I started studying, I had to relearn, and the process I learned was this one. So yeah, I do use this. I use it when I draw from life too. So I use the same process whether I'm drawing from photo or from life.
Johnny would like to know how he can protect his drawing because he's going on vacation.
Okay, are you going to be taking your drawing with you, Johnny?
Yes.
Okay, you're taking it with you? Susan, I'm really glad you found that helpful. Yeah, the layovers really do help. Again, I'm not too worried about, you know, perfection, but we want to get it as close as possible, especially in this early stage. So, Johnny, you said you were taking a holiday and you want to bring your sketch with you to make homework. Charcoal lines might smear. Okay, no, it's not an idiot question. There are no such things as stupid questions. So what you want to do is take a piece of tracing paper or another type of paper that's really smooth on the surface. You don't want anything that's going, like a smooth sketch paper is fine too. And what I do is I lay it down over my drawing and I tape it on the corners to the other paper. So I have my drawing and I lay a sheet of protective paper over it. You can even use newsprint. That works really well too. And then tape it on all top, bottom, and the sides. That way the paper doesn't move around and it'll protect your drawing from getting smeared.
So completely cover that.
So completely cover your drawing with another sheet of paper. Tape it into place so it doesn't move around. And just make sure it's taped down really well and you shouldn't have any problems.
What kind of tape should he use?
Oh, and the tape that you want to use, make sure you don't use something that's going to tear your paper when you pull it off. So I would recommend like a painter's tape that they use for taping off when they're going to paint the inside of a house, like the masking blue tape, blue masking tape. That one works the best. And if you're worried about it pulling up your paper, I'll usually tear off the sheet and kind of put the tape on my shirt, on my t-shirt first, and let it pick up some of the lint because it takes off some of that stickiness, but it'll still stick to your drawing until to the paper, but it won't tear the paper when you try and remove it. Just a little tip. And I also like to protect my drawings this way when they're finished. I will tape a piece of tracing paper over it and put it in a portfolio and store it flat. All right, perfect. Any other last minute questions? Do you have paper under your drawing paper as a cushion? I don't, but I have a drawing board that I use specifically for charcoal drawing, so I don't ever use any other kind of, you know, drawing or paint. I don't paint on the surface. I also don't cut paper on that surface, so my drawing board is very smooth and in good condition. So I thought I was sleeping. So yeah, I don't tend to, but you can. It's an option. If you find that any grooves in the surface of your drawing board are coming through on your paper, then you might want to lay down another sheet underneath. Just make sure that that sheet of paper isn't too textured, or else that might come through, especially if you're using the Canford stock, not the card stock, but the regular Canford paper, because that stuff is a little bit thinner. The card stock is thicker, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. All right. Well, if any other questions pop up, remember I'm going to post...
Oh, Susan.
Oh, Susan. You have a question? I haven't seen it yet.
What brand of paper is your favorite to use?
Oh, okay. So my favorite papers, I have a couple that I like to use. All of them are on that supply list. So I like to use the Canson Mi-Teintes, but I make sure I use the back side of the paper on that one because the front one, it's a pastel paper, so it has a lot of texture on one side. And the back side is also made for working, but it's pretty smooth, and I like that surface, and it's very durable. So if you find that you're erasing a lot and you're kind of wearing down your paper, switch to using the Canson Mi-Teintes paper brand and use the back side of it, the smoother side, and it's pretty durable. And that's what I have a lot of sight sizing students use because there's a lot of erasing in that process. And then personally, I actually like the Canford drawing paper, just the standard smooth drawing paper. I like the tooth on it because it's super slick, but it still accepts the charcoal really well. But I find that it gives me the best detail in the hatching. So yeah, just the ones on the list are the ones I like to use personally in my work.
And Linda. Photoshop.
And Linda, yes, Photoshop is what I use to do the main white marks that you see here. So if you have that, you oh, here, I'm opening it.
I know, but they can't see you pointing.
Oh yeah. So the little white marks you see here, those were created in Photoshop, and I did a similar overlay process. If you have like an iPad, you can download a program similar to the one I'm using here. It's called Procreate, and it's a great little drawing app if you want to learn to kind of sketch digitally. I'll use it to kind of draw sketches for my commissions and that sort of stuff. But you can also do the overlay here by just adding each as a layer. It's very similar to Photoshop in that way. So if you guys want to check your drawings against the picture, you can. But I will also be doing that each week. So if it's too much to take on, then don't worry about it. And I don't know how helpful that's going to be later on when you're toning. It's more for in this early stage of the drawing where we're trying to get the block in. All right, so I don't see any other questions coming in. So if anything does come up, just send me an email and I'll get back to you. And I will be posting the new lessons this afternoon. So they should be here by tonight for sure. It takes a little bit for the upload because I try to upload in full HD. So
We've got 4 videos.
yeah, and this class this week we have 4 videos, and they're each about an hour long. So it's going to be a little bit of a lot of information. So just take it one at a time. I recommend that you start with the lectures on eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. And then we're going to also have that main demo as well. So remember, homework, try to get it to me on Thursday. And if any other questions come up, just send me an email, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and really great job on all your drawings. I'll see you guys next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Great job.